What does 2012 look like? So far, so good, quite frankly. Europe's calmed down a bit, the Americans are creating jobs, and South Africa's not as wobbly as perhaps you might have feared. Or isn't it? Recently, Jill Marcus has downgraded the growth forecast. Adrian Saville, a member of the faculty at GIBS. Are you a little bit worried about 2012?
Bruce, I think there's reasons to be hopeful for 2012. If you look at the economic momentum that last year finished with, vehicle sales, retail sales were reasonably robust, but there are enough headwinds, I think, to suggest that it's going to be hard for the South African economy to achieve the reasonable growth that it got in 2011. So I'm hopeful, but I'm not filled with optimism. Death row
inmates are hopeful. They're never filled with optimism, right up until the plunger starts falling on the sort of triumvirate of chemicals that will kill them. We're not that bad.
We're not that bad. The reason why I say I'm not filled with optimism is my aspiration is, as I think many South Africans' aspirations, is for the economy to achieve growth of 6, 7, 8+%, to achieve brick-like growth. And for that to happen, as it stands, what we need is the advanced world to get filled with energy and facilitate growth in our markets. And in the absence of that, what we need is to re-engineer our structural drivers.
Yes.
Those structural drivers are broken. They're very sick, and in the absence of a invigorated advanced world, the South African economy will continue to move along at an adequate pace, 3%.
You were given a wand, and you were given one structural driver to fix, the one thing that could make the biggest difference in the South African economy. Where would you wave that wand?
I would wave the wand over the education system, for the simple reason that over any reasonable period, the single biggest driver of economic and social welfare is a functioning, healthy education system.
Fewer than half the kids who started school in the year 2000 matriculated last year. 70% of those understood 30% of the curriculum. I mean, that's a devastating prognosis for the next 20 years in South Africa.
The figures are very worrying, and they present the single biggest structural headwind to South Africa's economic welfare. The figures are improving. They are not as bad as they were in recent years, so I think we don't want to be too downbeat. We want to recognize where gains are being made. And government has intervened, for instance, in the Eastern Cape. I think this is a very important intervention.
Government's intervened hugely in Limpopo. It's a massive
so we're going in the right direction, but it's not enough, and it's a long time after it was needed.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we have some structural issues in South Africa. Globally, however, we can do what we like, stand on our heads in South Africa, do everything perfectly, but without everybody else around the world standing on their heads, we're kind of a bit lonely.
Yeah, well, maybe heads is a great concept to dwell on here, because I think we could label the first quarter of 2012 the Kojak moment. Greece is about to get a haircut.
Right.
And it's not going to be a number 2 or a number 1. It is going to be
a Gillette.
It will be shaved. I think that bondholders in Greece are going to be asked to take a haircut, probably in the region of 80% of their invested capital. Now, that is in a single swallow an incredible destruction of wealth, and it poses specific problems for the Greek economy. For instance, many Greek pension funds are invested in Greek government bonds, so there's a circularity in the pain. But what it will do is it will bring some certainty, and investors, markets favor certainty over uncertainty, even if the certainty equals pain.
My sense of the start of 2012 is that a lot of the uncertainty of 2011, it's still in the background, but it's no longer as prominent and as destructive as it was. In 2012.
Because the uncertainty creates this unknowable, so rather than act in an environment in which we just don't know what the future holds, we now know that the future might be tough, but there is a greater degree of ability to act with knowledge.
Absolutely pivotal to the South African economy is the level of the rand. The rand is 20% weaker than it was this time last year. A weaker rand is great for some sectors, but bad for inflation, ultimately undermines the economy. It's an issue the Reserve Bank is worried about. A more stable global economy, a more stable rand, a chance to get ourselves back on our feet.
Yeah, this is something that I've done a lot of research on and we've discussed before. The issue isn't so much the level of the rand, but rather the stability of the rand. And economies have demonstrated over broad sweeps of time, Japan's probably the best case in point, that a strengthening currency doesn't undermine your economic competitiveness. In fact, Japan over the 1970s to 2010 has seen their currency go from 400 yen to the dollar to 100 yen to the dollar, and they've built this extraordinary export machine. If your currency weakens, you weaken your balance sheet. So we are agreeing then to have a weak South African balance sheet to try and buy some economic growth. The sources of competitiveness reside elsewhere, and so we go back to the education issue. So if the rand does go weaker, that might offer some relief to some parts of the South African economy. It's Band-Aid.
It's Band-Aid, that's the problem. This is a foretaste of what is to come at GIBS pretty soon. There's a big economic shindig happening. You're there. I mean, that's enough reason to come, but there are a number of other people as well. And Chris Hart's there. Davy Ritz, always good value.
Azar Jameen.
Azar Jameen's going to be there.
Bishop.
Yeah. But Davy Ritz may even tell his Big Bang Theory. Do you know the Big Bang Theory?
I haven't heard it.
The Big Bang Theory is something you have to see, because the Big Bang Theory, it's like the Big Mac Index, but involves prostitutes.
Ah, okay.
And he'll talk about the level of the currency and how you can buy services worldwide for virtually equal amounts.
Okay.
But I mean, and this
a Big Mac index adjusted for different consumption.
Yes, exactly. Yes, you can get a lay-by on it apparently. Okay, so the big GIBS conference is happening in Joburg and elsewhere.
Wednesday next week. It's also in Cape Town, Durban the week after, and in Harare. Wednesday
the 25th. That is going to be the first of these sessions. All the big names, all the big details on that one. It's happening in Joburg, it's happening in Cape Town, Durban, and in Harare as well. All of those details on the GIBS website, gibs.co.za.